thing on Monday will take a little bit of time to clear its way off. I wouldn't take the graphics too literally here because there is some uncertainty in regards to how extensive these showers will spread during Monday, but again, there is potential for further downpours which may lead to some localised flooding in places, so it's worth staying up to date with the forecast as we head over the next day or so. But otherwise, where you do see the sunny spells on Monday, it is still going to be warm for the time of year, and the showers will tend to ease as we head throughout the rest of next week, so it's a return to more widespread sunshine for all of us.
There will be a light breeze in the morning, leading to a warm front. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Sunday with Michael Portillo from 11, only on GB News.
The Surrey Hills International Music Festival provides emerging artists with an opportunity to perform before audiences. It also champions accessibility and music education for primary school children. With me now to preview what audiences will hear is the chair of Surrey Hills International Music Festival, Julia Pearson. Julia, lovely to see you. Thank you for coming on GB News.
Thank you, Michael.
We're talking about a festival that takes place in May.
We are indeed, every May.
And Surrey Hills, what are the towns that are involved?
The Surrey Hills, in fact, occupies fully a quarter of the county, a quarter of Surrey. And it follows the chalk ridge from Farnham, above Guildford, Dorking, and on to Oxford. And the venues that we use are principally around the Guildford, Dorking areas of the Surrey Hills.
Are they, what, churches or concert halls or a bit of everything?
A little bit of everything, depending on the nature of the performers and what their needs are. So, for example, on the 6th of May, which is our opening concert, we have Betchworth Church, which is famous for 4 weddings and a funeral. So St Michael's Betchworth is the most beautiful church. That will be a performance space for the Hoodie Menuhin School glistering students. We will also be using the West Horsley Place Stone Hall, which famously was inherited by Bamber Gascoigne, yes, and is an Elizabethan and Tudor building. And that opening concert will be with the London Consortium, who will be playing Elizabethan music from both the Elizabeth I and the period of Elizabeth II.
GB News, the People's Channel.
The royal family is an enduring symbol of tradition, unity and pride for Britain. At GB News, we celebrate what makes this country great. In our new royal newsletter series, you can join me, Cameron Walker, for Inside the Palace, an exclusive look every week that takes you beyond the gates and brings you the very latest from those at the heart of the monarchy. Never miss a royal moment again. Sign up now. Go to gbnews.com/royal newsletter and get the latest straight to your inbox.
Good morning and welcome to the Camilla Tominey Show. A big week for Westminster with immigration back at the top of the political agenda. And those trade deals with India and the US. From Labour, we'll hear from the Member of Parliament for Bassett Law and Chair of the Red Wall Caucus, Jo White. I'm going to be asking her about the immigration white paper that's set to go before the Commons tomorrow. The Shadow Home Secretary, Chris Philp, will be joining me to talk through the Tories' tough new immigration proposals. But why didn't they act more decisively in their own 14 years in power? Former Trade Secretary Sir Liam Fox is on the show to explain exactly what the US and India free trade agreements mean in practice and whether they'll actually deliver for Britain. Plus, Reform UK are still riding high in the polls. I'm going to be speaking to the party's deputy leader, Richard Tice, about their plan for governing and whether Nigel Farage's party has peaked too soon. And the nation's strictest head teacher, Catherine Birbalsingh, will join me with a typically forthright take on what she calls the government's appalling schools bill. As ever, we've got 90 minutes of punchy politics to come, so do not even think of going anywhere. But before all that, with me now to review the Sunday front pages is Deputy and US Editor of The Spectator, Freddie Gray. And we'll get on to why your magazine seems to be an arrestable offence these days.
Oh, yes.
We'll get on to that in just a minute. But first of all, Mail on Sunday, all about the immigration white paper, making the point that apparently the government now plans to deport asylum seekers who have committed crimes, which begs the question, why don't they already, Freddie?
Well, it does sometimes feel as though for the political class, for Labour, for Tories, immigration is a Sunday newspaper story.
Yes.
They'll get excited about it because they feel they need to, because something happens. For instance, Reform do extremely well in the local elections. There's a panic in the political class. Labour, in particular, at the moment, are trying to sound as tough as possible. So they're saying things like, commit a crime and we'll kick you out, for which most people read that and they think, well, surely if you commit a crime, you shouldn't be in this country.
Quite.
And then they're introducing other crackdowns, supposed crackdowns, like if you're not actually a student, you shouldn't get a student visa.
Yeah, funny that.
Yeah.
But it's weird, isn't it? Because we've done so many stories on The Telegraph, and I note that Yvette Cooper has written for the Sunday Telegraph today, which is very much positioning her tanks on right-wing lawns. But we've done lots of stories about people who are criminals, who've committed crimes in this country and they're here seeking asylum. And they get to stay because they claim things like, if I go home, my son will be forced to eat foreign chicken nuggets. And if I go home, I might be persecuted because I've got a non-Afghanistan tattoo on my arm and all this nonsense. So what difference does any of these policies make if the lawyers can still...
Well, not much, because particularly, we had a Conservative government for over a decade.
Yes, we did.
And nothing changed. And now the Conservatives are saying, actually, we're going to get even tougher than Labour, and we're going to make sure that the Human Rights Act can't be applied to asylum cases. And I know you're going to talk about this later, but again, the question every member of the public will be asking, you were in charge for so long.
I am going to ask Chris Philp that. Why didn't you do this when you were in charge?
Yeah, well, let's not give it away too much.
Well, he may be on other rounds at the moment, so we might not hear this. Also, an interesting story in the front of the Sunday Times saying that the guy who owns most of the migrant hotels in the UK is making an absolute fortune.
Yes, the asylum king, Graham King, is a billionaire now. And that's a billion made almost, well, let's not say almost entirely, but largely from taxpayer money.
Yeah.
Because he puts up asylum seekers, and we, the government, pay them to the tune of several million every day. And those numbers are meant to be going down, but they're not. And he's still making a fortune. So it's an egregious example. The Sunday Times Rich List is coming out next week. He'll be on it.
Yes. Well, he'll be much further up it.
He'll be shooting up it, as he probably will next year.
Yes, indeed. And the year after and the year after.
Yeah.
I'll be asking Richard Tice a bit later about Reform's plan to head to the courts to close migrant hotels. But let's move on to the front page of the Sunday Telegraph. Now, we've been discussing this, haven't we, backstage, so to speak. This is an astonishing story for a number of reasons.
Yes.
Just talk us through it.
So it's a retired policeman.
Yes.
Who tweeted a response, and it was a very mild thing to say. It was saying, next they'll be coming. It was about Hamas protesters, and he said next they'll be going to the Heathrow looking for Jews. Is what he said.
And that came after, I think, one airport did see protesters descend on Israelis landing and sort of raised placards and things.
Taken entirely out of context and read with malicious intent, you can see how it might have been interpreted as something offensive.
Yes.
Not violence-inducing, offensive. Anyway, for this, his home was searched, and they discovered what police officers called Brexity things.
What were the Brexity things?
Well, they included a copy of a guest you've had on here, Douglas Murray.
Oh, yeah,
a
he's
copy of
very Brexity, yes.
And a copy of The Spectator.
No!
And I was rather thrilled to see the copy that they picked up was one of my pieces I'd written about Prince Harry.
All publicity is good publicity.
All publicity. And I didn't realise while writing about Prince Harry, I was in danger of
So are we saying we now have to police the thoughts of people who, shock horror, might read a Douglas Murray book and might do Brexity things like reading The Spectator?
Read The Spectator. And he had some material that looked like it might have been critical of the European Union.
Oh, my goodness me. Yeah. Quick, call the cops.
That seemed very dangerous.
I mean, I'm laughing, but this is a serious matter, right? We've seen Alison Pearson investigated for the non-crime hate incident. We've had a number of different incidents, particularly when it comes to people being gender critical, Julie Bindel, Harry, can't remember his surname, but another campaigner, and the police are turning up saying, we're basically here to police your thoughts. Meanwhile, if you get burgled or your bike nicked, you can't see the old bill for love nor money.
No, it is actually quite frightening and awful. And I suppose we probably shouldn't laugh about it too much because, I mean, I said it on a radio show this week. I said people are policed and persecuted legally for their tweets and so on. And I was saying, no, that's not true. It's just for inciting violence.
No.
And it's just not true. That's just wrong.
No, there are many tweets that haven't incited violence at all and have been investigated. Meanwhile, there are other activities on social media that you and I observe on a daily basis that do incite violence and nothing happens.
Well, quite.
Let's move over to America as it's your specialist subject, Freddie.
Yes.
And The Observer has written a piece called Missing Melania. What's this saying? The First Lady vanishes.
Well, this is a sort of story that bubbles on about Melania, and it tends to be sort of anti-Trump journalists like to peddle it because this idea that it's a sham marriage and so on. I think that's probably overreading it, but the relationship is certainly very strange. And she does appear to do everything on her terms, perhaps fair enough. But when Trump came back in this time, there was a lot of talk among the Trumpists that this time she was going to be a much more sort of present First Lady. She was going to be much more involved in everyday running of the White House. And she doesn't. She does her own thing. She disappears to Mar-a-Lago. She goes other places. She's not a sort of a serving member of the first family in a kind of conventional sense. And this leads a lot of people to suspect that there may be something wrong with the marriage, that she isn't happy. She's never liked politics, apparently. So it's a story that bubbles on and on.
Yes.
And even big Trump fans, because Trump fans in America talk about the Trump family like they talk about the monarchy.
Yes.
So it's a sort of subject of slightly salacious interest.
Yeah, and they're quite interested, aren't they, in all of the children and barons' rise to sort of some degree of social media fame. The thing is with political spouses, I mean, you could say the same for Victoria Starmer. She's been very lesser spotted.
Yes.
We saw her at the VE Day commemorations.
Yes.
She keeps herself to herself, and isn't that OK, Freddie?
It should be OK, but it doesn't stop people gossiping.
No, true.
Even in the case of the Starmers.
Are we crediting the Donald with quite a good week in that he seems to have helped to broker what appears to be a fragile ceasefire between Pakistan and India?
Well, he certainly claimed credit for it,
Yes.
and a lot of people were quick to say, oh, it was typical him claiming credit. But it does look as though America, and you know what did it? The tariffs.
Ah.
Because the tariffs meant that America can use them as leverage against China, which is very important in influencing Pakistan, and India, which is, of course, directly involved in the conflict. So it does mean when you threaten massive tariffs on people, it does give you strategic leverage. It may be economically ruinous, disastrous, and we can talk about that another time. But the fact is it is effective in negotiations, and the Trump administration is currently in Geneva negotiating with China and is hoping to announce a very, very significant trade deal with India.
Yes.
And so it was able to use those two powers to try and bring an immediate ceasefire to what would have been, or, well, it could still be, but fingers crossed it won't be, a nuclear conflict.
Yes. I mean, there are still reports of kind of bombs landing overnight and the fragility of it has been stated.
Yes.
Meanwhile, over in Ukraine, we've got that summit, which the US have not been involved with, which is interesting, isn't it, to see Keir Starmer do that pool clip. He's alongside Emmanuel Macron and the Poles, basically making the point that they're giving Putin this 30-day ultimatum, basically. And now Putin is saying that he does want to speak directly to President Zelensky. Trump can't really take any credit in that, can he? Or?
No, although he probably will. because I think what I mean, the Trump administration's approach would say, right, we're going to try and fix it. Here we go. You do it like this, and then we'll do this minerals deal. It will be an America First way of doing it. And then when that doesn't work, we'll just pull away immediately. Sure. And I think actually the pulling away did change things a little bit because Zelensky and Putin, to a certain extent, could use Trump in various ways.
Yes.
And when he pulls out, they have to say, oh, we have to go back to war now.
Also, it's interesting in the minerals deal to have the US blame Russia for a, quote, illegal invasion, which made it quite clear whose fault they think that war is. Let's move on to slightly lighter fare. Prince Harry.
Yes.
Spotted in a cowboy hat with Meghan at a Beyoncé concert.
Yes.
But more recently, and indeed, at least domestically, spotted on a Ring doorbell somewhere in Fulham, which does raise questions about his concerns for his own security, because if he's knocking on random doors, why is he taking the Home Office to court saying that he and his family are going to be in danger in the UK if he...
Well, funny enough, it was just after he'd been in court, I think, worrying about his privacy and his security, that he was then snapped on his door cam, you know, at the wrong door, looking for a friend of his.
Yes, the MOS think that he was looking for some aristocratic friend.
He was looking for a buddy, yeah. There's lots of speculation as to what he might have been doing, but I think it's probably he's a bit lonely and trapped.
Yes.
And like a lot of unhappily married people, when he gets
hang on a minute. Do we know that he's unhappily married? Why are you saying that, Freddie?
Oh, OK. Sorry. I mean, I just can't imagine how you could be married to Meghan Markle and not be unhappy.
No. He looks extremely happy at the Beyoncé concert.
Does he?
Dressed like somebody out of Dallas, absolutely embracing US life.
OK.
All right.
I'll buy it.
Let's move on to somebody that isn't happy, and that is David and Victoria Beckham.
Oh, yes.
Because there is a little bit of a parallel between lessons Brooklyn can learn from Prince Harry, the Telegraph reports.
Yeah.
There's a bit of a parallel here, isn't there, with sons going off and marrying wives, and the next thing we know, they're not seeing their parents anymore.
Well, the Trumps, the Beckhams, the Windsors.
Yes.
It's all royal stuff, really. Yes, I think it does seem like it's one of these stories that is a son marrying somebody, the family fall out with him, and it's all very sad. That's what we're reading at the moment. The Beckhams are very sad.
That's
they're heartbroken.
The briefing. It's all sad, and I think it probably is sad.
Yeah,
I can have sympathy, actually, with parents who clearly have invested a huge amount in all of their children.
Yeah.
To then just lose one.
Yes. Well, marriage is difficult.
Yes.
People and in-laws.
I know.
Often goes wrong.
And I hope you're not experiencing similar problems in the Grey dynasty.
No, so far so good.
So far the Tomineys are all right.
So far we've just about held together.
Our children are too young. We'll have to wait and see how this all goes, Freddie. Thank you for that little march through the Sunday papers.
Great pleasure.
Lovely to see you.
Lovely to see you.
People continue to read your Spectators without fear of the police knocking at the door, because at the end of the day, it's nothing wrong with having Brexity thoughts. And I say that as somebody who has quite a few of them. Anyway, coming up next, we're going to be speaking to the Labour MP and chair of the Red Wall Caucus, Joe White. We're also going to be speaking to Richard Tice, Chris Philp, Catherine Birbalsingh and Liam Fox. So there's so much more to come. Don't go anywhere. This is the Camilla Tominey Show, only on GB News.
I hope it doesn't rain.
Don't worry about it.
It'll spoil our holiday.
Relax, we're totally covered.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News travel destinations forecast.
The area of low pressure moving towards the UK at the moment is also going to be affecting parts of Europe as well. Widespread showers and thunderstorms over the next couple of days, particularly for France, but also into parts of northern Spain and Portugal. Some of the driest conditions actually down towards Gibraltar and southern areas of Iberia. Some showers also developing across parts of Italy, through the Adriatic and potentially over towards Greece as well. Turkey not faring too badly, but overall things will be settling down as we head over the forthcoming week with drier conditions prevailing.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News travel destinations forecast.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently. It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it? It's explosive. I mean, this is very good. It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial. And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born. It's everything you need to kickstart your evening. Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it. That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
What is the state of our economy? What is the state of our National Health Service? What is the state of our schools?
What on earth is going on?
Understanding Britain means understanding the state we're in. This is State of the Nation with me, Matt Goodwin, Wednesdays, Thursdays and Fridays from 8 p.m. on GB News.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
The royal family is an enduring symbol of tradition, unity and pride for Britain. At GB News, we celebrate what makes this country great. In our new royal newsletter series, you can join me, Cameron Walker, for Inside the Palace, an exclusive look every week that takes you beyond the gates and brings you the very latest from those at the heart of the monarchy. Never miss a royal moment again. Sign up now. Go to gbnews.com/royal newsletter and get the latest straight to your inbox.
Welcome back. Joining me now is the MP for Bassett Law and the chair of the Red Wall Caucus, Jo White. Lovely to see you this morning. Thank you so much for your time. Let's get stuck into this immigration white paper and what we know of it, Jo. I mean, are you happy it goes far enough? I know particularly your constituents in Bassett Law are worried about high levels of legal and illegal immigration. We've got restrictions on student visas. We've got a demand for a higher standard of English to A-level standard for people coming in. Companies who fail to recruit enough English staff are going to lose some of their sponsor rights for foreign workers. Changes to Article 8 proposed, and foreigners who commit crimes are out.
It's a big step forward from what we had. Previously, it's been a bit of a free-for-all, particularly with coming out of the European Union. Rather than taking control of our immigrant numbers, we've increased them. If you look at 2023, we had net migration figure of 906,000. It went down last year to 728,000, but it's got to go down further. The migration figures are coming out very, very shortly. It's expected that they're going to go down again, but we've got to get them much more balanced, and that's the demand of the people in my constituency, is that what we have to focus on is jobs for British workers, and that's what we're requiring employers to do. So rather than automatically recruit overseas, we're requiring them to put skills training in place so that British workers can have those jobs. And for example, in the care sector, we're now requiring evidence that the care sector tries to recruit in this country before they even attempt to look overseas. It's absolutely essential that the jobs are based here. British workers are being trained up for those jobs, and so that we can rebuild our economy.
But aren't you concerned then by the India trade deal? Because it's been called a sort of two-tier tax system that favours Indian workers over British workers because of the exemption on their employers paying national insurance. Doesn't that create a system where it's going to be more favourable for people to employ Indian workers to look after the elderly in care homes, for instance, than it is British workers?
This is an exchange based on particular trades and requirements that we need. We have these agreements right across the world with other countries. For example, my daughter works in Paris. She does not contribute national insurance, pay national insurance contributions to France. She pays them back here. So those agreements already exist. And in fact, they were being negotiated with previous governments, and this is something that's automatically been added to, that's included as part of the trade deals agreed last week. It's part of that. In ensuring that we have investment into this country and bringing in billions of investment of work and employment opportunities for people who also go out to India, because that's one of the largest growing countries in the world in terms of their economy, and we need to be part of that.
OK. Tell me, what do the good people of Bassett Law actually make of Keir Starmer? You are in one of those Labour areas. It was obviously Conservative last time round, Labour before that. You've got the rise of reform. I would imagine that Nigel Farage may be enticing to quite a few people in Bassett Law, Brexit voting community, working class community. What do they actually think of Starmer? Do they think he's the right person to lead the Labour Party? Do you?
I ask of Sir Keir Starmer is to come to Bassett Law and talk to the people of Bassett Law. I want the connection between Westminster and constituencies of the North to be rebuilt. It's completely broken. So policy making and the way we talk about our delivery is going, people don't listen anymore. I think the moment that when we got into government in July, people voted for us with a sense of hope. They voted for Brexit hoping for change. They voted for Boris Johnson in 2019 hoping for change with the Brexit deal, and that didn't happen. And they voted for us in 2024 hoping that we would bring change. And the moment that the winter fuel payment and that announcement was made, in my view, that hope was broken, and now they're not listening to the work we're doing. They don't believe us anymore. And I want Keir Starmer and other cabinet members to come out to communities like mine and to talk to the voters about what we want to do and listen to them and listen to their priorities. And
when
so
was
that
the last time
relationship can be rebuilt.
When was the last time Starmer visited Bassett Law?
He came in June 2024.
And how did he go down?
He came to the hospital, he met with the staff there, and I believe that on a one-to-one basis, Keir, he engages, he listens, he is empathetic, and that's what we need. We want that relationship with people in my constituency.
And yet we've got this kind of talk about, you mentioned your constituency voting for Leave. It voted overwhelmingly for Leave back in 2016. And now we've got these leaked plans about Starmer wanting to re-ingratiate us with the EU, put British troops on EU missions, reintroduce a youth mobility scheme, make concessions on fishing rights. That's not the kind of behaviour that the Bassett Law constituents will believe in, is it?
We need is there are businesses in my constituency who've lost trade as a consequence of the bureaucracy and the red tape they have had to endure since coming out of the EU. We need those connections to be smoothed over, and I want my businesses to be able to trade effectively, not just in Europe but across the world, and that's what the negotiations about. There's not going to be any young people's exchanges, because I think that opens the risk to free movement of labour, and I don't want to see that happen. But what I want to see is businesses flourishing in this country because they're able to trade effectively right across the world, including in European countries.
You mentioned the winter fuel allowance earlier, Joe. Just in a yes or no terms, should the cut to winter fuel be scrapped?
What I want to see is a raising of the threshold. So it's not a yes or no. I want to see the raising of the threshold, so the people on the higher range of upper range of paying tax payments, they should not, they're obviously wealthy people, and therefore they do not particularly benefit from the winter fuel payment. So it's people who need that money in order to be able to live in the winter times.
And finally, does Starmer have a woman problem? That's what Louise Haigh has suggested, former Transport Secretary. And indeed, we had similar rhetoric from Rosie Duffield, who talks about a lads culture inside Number 10. Briefly, Jo, what's your view?
I haven't come across a lads culture. The moment I see it, I would shout out about it, because women have to be able to work effectively within the Houses of Parliament. And if there's any blockages in terms of misogyny or sexism, then it has to be called out and stopped immediately.
All right, Jo White, we need to leave it there for time reasons, but thank you very much indeed for joining me this morning.
So much, thank you.
Thank you. Well, coming up next, Shadow Home Secretary Chris Philp will join me. After 14 years of Tory government in which they let the immigration crisis go completely out of control, are the Tories' proposals too little too late? Also be speaking to Richard Tice in the next hour. This is the Camilla Tominey Show, only on GB News.
What does it feel like to be a Great British Giveaway winner?
That's a big surprise.
Oh my God, I'm going to cry.
Do you know what? I've never won anything like this in my life.
Oh my God, this is amazing.
That is absolutely fantastic.
We're over the moon.
Yes, that is fantastic.
You know, you have no idea how much I needed it. Oh my goodness. That's wonderful. Oh, thank you.
Oh, thank you so much. I was gobsmacked. Thank you, GB News.
I'd say don't hesitate, do it. If you're not in it, you've got no chance of winning it.
Thank you.
You weren't expecting to get that call today, were you?
No, I wasn't.
You really could be our next big winner. Head over to gbnews.com/win now to find out how and get your entry for the Great British Giveaway. Great prizes, even greater wins.
Good afternoon, Britain. Weekdays from midday.
What this allows teachers to do is to divide the children into groups so they can be taught as in groups round a table, 3 or 4 tables in the classroom. Now, much more effective than that is to have a teacher at the front of the class and the children facing the teacher. It's called whole class teaching. It's what they do in the Asia Pacific. Now, if we don't have so many support staff, teaching assistants, schools would be forced to have more old-fashioned teacher at the front style teaching. So actually that will raise standards, because we know we're already about 3 years behind the Asia Pacific countries. So going back to more traditional teacher-led teaching, having fewer classroom assistants, will actually raise standards. But don't get me wrong on this, Andrew. Of course, on an individual basis, some children need support staff. So I'm not trying to rubbish support staff. There were some great support staff, but we've got too many. Therefore, we need to work within the existing budget. And to be fair to the government, and we're not part of political, we're not either right or left. We would say, as far as the government is concerned, they've said that if there is a bigger pay rise than the 2.8% or 2.6%, which is inflation, it'll have to be paid from within the current budget. So the government needs to stick to that. They can pay it within the current budget, but you tell that to the teacher unions, and of course they won't want to believe that. They will say, no, we need more money. But if you go to the Institute for Fiscal Studies, they will tell you that since 1953, going back to the 50s, we've increased expenditure on education by 900% in real terms. Staggering, I know. And we haven't improved standards. So the success of the teaching profession is not about money. It's about the quality of the teachers. So we should pay good teachers more. I wouldn't pay mediocre teachers more. I would pay good teachers more. So they have got a case, but we could do it within the existing budget.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Welcome back to the Camilla Tominey Show on GB News. Lots more still to come on the show today. I'm going to be getting Shadow Home Secretary Chris Philp's reaction to Labour's latest immigration policy and what the Conservatives plan to do about it in Parliament this week. Former International Trade Secretary Sir Liam Fox will be here to explain what the UK's new free trade deals with India and the US really mean for Britain. I'll also be speaking to the Deputy Leader of Reform UK, Richard Tice, about new polling which puts his party well on top. And Britain's strictest headmistress, Catherine Birbalsingh, will join me to discuss those rumours that Bridget Phillipson, the Education Secretary, is about to be reshuffled out of Cabinet. But first, here's your latest news headlines with Tatiana Sanchez.
Camilla, thank you very much. The top stories this morning. The government is set to roll out sweeping reforms to the immigration system. The skilled visa threshold will be raised to require a graduate qualification and a higher salary threshold under plans outlined in a white paper to be presented in Parliament tomorrow. For jobs below this level, access to the immigration system will be time limited and only granted if there are shortages critical to the industrial strategy. Under the plans to reduce net migration to the UK, employers will be told that they must train workers in the UK rather than to turn to immigration to solve labour shortages. The pressure is on for the Home Secretary to reduce net migration, as small boat arrivals since January have already reached a record high of 11,500 people. Elsewhere, Russia's President Vladimir Putin has suggested he is open to restarting peace talks with Ukraine as early as next week. In a rare televised late-night address from the Kremlin, Putin said Russia was seeking serious negotiations aimed at moving towards a lasting, strong peace.
We propose that the Kyiv authorities resume the talks they stopped and terminated in April 2022. I'm referring to direct talks without any preconditions, and we propose to start immediately on Thursday the 15th of May in Istanbul. We are committed to holding serious talks with Ukraine.
During a visit to European allies in Kyiv, Sir Keir Starmer said allied leaders made material progress towards a ceasefire in Ukraine yesterday, adding that European allies, together with the US, are calling Putin out and pledged to ramp up sanctions further if he turns his back on peace. Meanwhile, the conflict between Pakistan and India has reportedly reached a full and immediate ceasefire following talks mediated by the United States. Though within the past few hours, both countries have accused each other of violating that agreement after explosions were heard in Kashmir. The fighting between India and Pakistan over the last few days has been the worst military confrontation between the two rivals in decades. The use of drones, missiles and artillery started when India struck targets in Pakistan and administered Kashmir in response to a deadly militant attack in Pahalgam last month. Pakistan had denied any involvement. And a new study has found teenagers carrying excess fat could struggle with learning and memory more than their peers. Important developmental areas of the brain were found to be larger in overweight youngsters, and scientists say it could even impact how they regulate emotions. They now believe tackling obesity is vital to young people's bodies as well as their brains. And those are the latest headlines for now. More from me in an hour. It's back to Camilla.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Thank you, Tatiana. Lots more coming up today. I'm going to be speaking to the Deputy Leader of Reform UK, Richard Tice. Plus, I'm going to be speaking to the former International Trade Secretary, Sir Liam Fox, to get his reaction to those two trade deals agreed this week. And Britain's strictest head teacher, Catherine Birbalsingh, will be here to tell us where the government is going wrong on education. But first, joining me now is the Shadow Home Secretary, Chris Philp. Lovely to see you this morning, Mr. Philp. You're going to try to disapply the Human Rights Act for immigration cases. You're going to table amendment to the bill this week. Tell me how that might work.
Good morning, Camilla. Yes, that's right. We think that some of the judgments handed down in recent years by judges based on human rights have been absolutely ridiculous and totally defied common sense. The problem is that the ECHR is very vaguely worded and judges have been interpreting it in a way that has been ridiculous. I'll give you one example. There was a Zimbabwean paedophile who was due to be deported back to Zimbabwe, quite right, yet a judge said, no, if he gets sent back to Zimbabwe, he might face, quotes, some hostility. and therefore he can stay in the UK. Well, what about the human rights of British children to be protected from this dangerous man and thousands of other dangerous criminals like him who managed to avoid deportation using the Human Rights Act and are basically facilitated by UK judges to stay here? And it's not just foreign criminals, it's other people with no right to be here. So we have a simple first step solution to that, and that is to essentially repeal the Human Rights Act in relation to all immigration matters, including foreign criminals, which means that UK judges will no longer be able to use human rights judgments to keep foreign criminals and others in the UK. We're going to push that to a vote. We've tabled it already. We're going to push it to a vote in Parliament tomorrow. That vote is likely to come tomorrow evening. We Conservatives will all be voting for it, but I fear Starmer and Yvette Cooper and those weak Labour MPs might vote against it.
Well, it probably will get voted down, and it begs the question, why on earth didn't you do this while you were in office for 14 years?
Well, look, I think the last government, speaking candidly, made some mistakes with immigration, and this is something that I think, frankly, we should have done. But look, we've got new leadership. I've been in this new job as Shadow Home Secretary for just a few months. We've developed this new policy in that short space of time, and we're going to put it to a vote in Parliament. We've got new leadership. There is a new, much tougher approach. We're developing specific, credible ideas that will actually fix this problem, and we're going to force them to a vote in Parliament. And look, if Labour use their massive majority to vote this down, which they probably will do, we will keep coming back again and again and again. We'll fight hard to win the next election, and if we do, this measure and many more measures we're going to develop will be in that manifesto so we can then implement them.
All right, well, we'll get on to your electoral chances come 2029 in just a moment. Sir Edward Lee, your colleague in the Conservatives, has said it was a catastrophic error that you made on immigration. When I ask you and your colleagues about legal migration and you talk about implementing a cap, you won't ever tell me what the cap is. Therefore, how can you be credible to the GB News audience if you won't say where you will set that cap, not least when immigration reached record levels under the Conservatives? What was it? 960,000 in 2023.
Yeah, and that was far, far too high. That was completely wrong, and that was a catastrophic mistake. I agree with what Edward said about that. He's absolutely right. Now, there were some changes made by the last Conservative government late in their time in office, too late, I would honestly admit, which are getting the numbers down from that very high figure you mentioned down to about 350,000. But that is still too high. That is still too high.
What should it be capped at?
Measures that Labour have announced today and they'll announce tomorrow. Well, let me come on to that. The little tinkering they're going to do. Yvette Cooper said this morning it would take it down by a further 50,000. That is not enough either. Now, we think there should be a binding cap voted for in Parliament. Let me come to that, Camilla. We're going to put that concept to a vote in Parliament tomorrow again. That'll be the other vote we force. Now, we are working on what that number's going to be. We're not going to shoot from the hip and just make a number up, but it will be a lot lower than that 300-odd thousand that is currently forecast. Then? And the cut, we think it should be slashed. More probably, and it will be the number will be announced in due course, but we're going to reduce
more than 100,000
by a lot more than 50,000. The reduction needs to be more than that. It needs to dramatically reduce,
talking about
even from
just
the
give us a
forecast levels
ballpark
that are currently forecast.
Just give us a ballpark figure. We had David Cameron talking about tens of thousands. You don't want 340 or 50,000. So what kind of... Are you talking about between 100,000 and 200,000? Because Reform, who are nipping at your heels, are saying net zero immigration. So just give us a general figure. You must have one in mind.
No. Camilla, we're doing the detailed work now. One of the reasons why trust in politics has been undermined is because for too long politicians have just, when asked a question like the question you just asked, and it's a reasonable question,
you don't answer them.
They just chucked a figure out there without doing the work. So what we are doing the work is happening right now, literally right now, and when we've completed that work, which will be, way ahead of an election, I can tell you that, well ahead of an election, we'll have a number, but when we announce that number, unlike previous numbers, it will be properly worked out. We'll have all of the detail, so it actually stands up, and so we can actually deliver it. The easiest thing in the world would be for me to stand here on this Sunday morning and chuck a number out there, right? And then it doesn't get done. We are never again going to make that mistake. When we say something, we are going to mean it. We're going to have the working available, so we can actually deliver it in government. And we're doing the work now, and the public, your viewers, will know that number long before an election, but more importantly than that, they'll see the working and they can see how it will actually get delivered in practice.
Let's move on to the polling. So the polling now, various different polls, including a recent YouGov one, is putting Reform above 30%. And I think the magic number as far as Reform is concerned is 31.5%. If the other two major parties fall down the polls, they don't need to have any pacts with the Tories. They can get a majority at the next general election. I mean, the figures at the moment, as they seem, Chris Philp, do point towards the Tories being eviscerated next time round, don't they? Just be honest, on the basis of the locals.
Look, those local elections the week before last were obviously very bad for us, but they were also very bad for Labour. Of course, just remember, we were defending a high point, right? Because those elections, when they were last contested 4 years ago, we did unbelievably well. So we were measuring our performance against the high point. But look, people are frustrated about the last government. They're very angry with the Labour government because they've put everyone's taxes up and lost control of our borders. And, you know, Reform have benefited from that. But look, polls move around. Just remember, back in 2019, do you remember? 2019, I think the Brexit Party, as it then was, won those European elections in about May or June of 2019. The Conservatives were down at about 10% or something like that. And just 6 months later, Boris won a landslide. So look, there's everything to play for. We are fighting hard. And let me tell you the difference between us and Reform, and it follows on from my last answer. The difference between us and Reform is that we are going to do the thinking to come up with the credible policies that can be implemented and that will actually work.
Point.
Look, Nigel Farage is very charismatic. Hang on, he's very charismatic. He's got great slogans, but he doesn't have a plan. He wrote an article in the Mail, I think yesterday, where he threw out a whole load of ideas that would have cost like 50 or 60 billion pounds with no idea how to pay for them.
We'll ask Richard Tice about Reform's ideas.
Now, that is not going to help anyone.
Well, is there anything wrong with Liz Truss on steroids? You're now criticising Liz Truss?
I'm just saying that you need
if you're
going to make promises either to cut taxes. I'm just making the point that if you're going to make promises to either cut taxes or increase expenditure, you need to have a proper plan, a credible plan to do that.
Right.
And what Nigel Farage said in the Telegraph or the Mail, I think it was the Mail yesterday, wasn't credible. It was loads of promises that cost tens of billions of pounds without the first idea how to pay for them.
The problem here is that even you, as a Conservative minister, shadow minister, are talking about Nigel Farage more than Kemi Badenoch. Everyone's just talking about Nigel Farage. No one's talking about your leader because she's not cutting through as much.
To be fair, Camilla, you asked me a bunch of questions about Reform and I answered them.
But you keep,
and if I'd gone and talked about Kemi Badenoch, you'd have been the first to jump down my throat and tell me to answer the question. Look, I think Kemi's doing a good job. Look,
Chris Philp, I don't jump down anyone's throat. I just ask for straight questions and straight answers. On that note, can we just very briefly talk about this story on the front of the Sunday Telegraph with a former policeman being investigated for having Brexity materials in his house, including a copy of The Spectator and Douglas Murray's book? Now, it strikes me that the police is investigating this man but hasn't seemingly looked into the TikTok groups that feature in a Channel 4 documentary on grooming gangs, where people are questioning the convictions of convicted child rapists and calling their victims dirty bitches and sick cows. Shouldn't the police be investigating these TikTok groups instead of people who might read the Telegraph?
That's right. I mean, I've read about that case. A 71-year-old man, former special constable, absolutely disgraceful, about a load of police officers went into his home, searched his entire house, including like all his clothes and his wife's clothes, and then detained him at a police station for a number of hours. Absolutely disgraceful. That should never have happened. We cannot have the police harassing clearly innocent people. He clearly hadn't committed a crime in that way. Absolutely disgraceful. I think the Kent police have apologised quite right to, and that's why we Conservatives have said we would abolish non-crime hate incidents to stop this kind of nonsense happening in the first place. And yes, those people who are, and to the second part of your question, people who are expressing support for these vile rape gangs are beyond contempt.
Thank you, Chris Philp, for that final answer. Now, coming up next, we're going to be speaking about trade with former Trade Secretary Sir Liam Fox. He's going to talk us through what's in the US and the India deals and, indeed, what they really mean for Britain. This is the Camilla Tominey Show, only on GB News.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently.
It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it?
It's explosive. I mean, this is very good. It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial.
And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born.
It's everything you need to kickstart your evening.
Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it.
That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
No,
because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff.
Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood.
So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster, the ultimate clique. And you're fighting like rats in a sack. But here on the Camilla Tominey Show, we ask the questions the establishment media is too scared to ask. OK, let me ask you a straight question, because I know you're a straight-talking politician. Whether it's net zero, illegal immigration or law and order, nothing is off limits. You had the power then.
Yeah, as I
and
say,
now you've lost it. That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show that's fearless. But no, let me finish my question if you don't mind, because it is my show. Sundays at 9:30, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
Welcome back. Joining me now is Sir Liam Fox, the former Secretary of State for International Trade, in the studio. Lovely to see you this morning.
You too, Camilla.
Right, let's get stuck into these two deals. Let's talk about the US one first of all. I mean, Donald Trump described it as big and great. It's huge, and they're both on first-name terms, and it was all very cosy in that quite bizarre choreography in the Oval Office last week. Is it as good as they're saying?
Well, it's neither full and comprehensive,
no,
nor is it historic. It's a slight improvement on the bad position that we were in after the new Trump administration applied the tariffs. So it's not a catastrophe. It's better than nothing. The question is, how much better than nothing is it?
And farmers are now complaining of being betrayed. We've got the prospect of 13 tonnes of US beef coming into the country. That was always a concern when you were doing trade negotiations, I know. And equally, we've got a watering down, potentially, of the digital services tax, so it's a win for the tech bros of Silicon Valley. I mean, there is some quite nice deals to be done, perhaps, on the Rolls-Royce engines going over steel and aluminium, subject to no tariff at all. But in general, it seems like Donald has got the better part of this deal, not least because at the end of the day, we were better off before Trump 2.0.
We were better off before any tariffs were put on. Clearly, the aim of the government was to protect British steel and to protect British cars in terms of exports. The trouble with cars is we've only got a reduction in tariff if we don't export any more than we did last year.
Yes, exactly.
So we're not allowed to increase our exports to the United States. So it's disappointing. I suppose that any improvement. Any liberalisation of trade is to be welcomed.
Yeah.
And, of course...
Same said for India?
Yes, indeed. Any liberalisation in the global economy at the present time is a good thing given the threats that it faces. But of course, the irony of the whole thing is that the government were using the one thing that they didn't want, which was their Brexit freedoms, to enable them to achieve both of these objectives.
Well, let's get on to Brexit and what is being billed by Leavers as a kind of great EU sellout. We've got these sort of secret talks going on. We're fast approaching an EU summit, which could lead to the giveaway of, we think, some of our hard-fought-for fishing rights, concessions on security and maybe even the notion of sending our troops into some EU operations. We've got this whole youth mobility scheme. Sum this up as a lever. I mean, is this a sellout to the EU? What do you think?
Yes, it's potentially a complete betrayal of Brexit. What the government are talking about is what is called regulatory alignment. Now, regulatory alignment means we would be rule takers from Brussels.
So this is like the Swiss model?
Without having any say in how those regulations are created, which would put us in a worse position than when we were actually in the European Union. And when you think about trade, but to take it back to trade, it would tie us to the EU rules to ease trade with the European Union. But the rest of the global economy, the OECD predicts, will grow at over 3% this year, when the European Union will grow at 1%. So what's the point of tying us into regulations with the slowest growing group in the world when we should be increasing our trade elsewhere? And remember, we have a trade surplus with the rest of the world, but already a trade deficit with the European Union.
Why is he doing it? Because he can't leave behind his Remainer past?
Because Keir Starmer was deeply committed to remaining in the European Union, as are many of his colleagues, as I think is the Governor of the Bank of England, and they want to try to reverse the Brexit position. What we should be doing is to take advantage of our Brexit freedoms, to be increasing our share of trade with the fastest growing part of the global economy, because that's ultimately what will produce greater prosperity for the people in Britain.
Is Kemi Badenoch cutting through enough in opposition on some of these issues? I mean, I haven't heard her say much about the EU deal. She comes out in response to the US deal, says we've been shafted. That was probably a bit of an overstatement, wasn't it? Should she have issued that statement immediately, criticising the US trade deal? And there's actually some good things in it.
Well, there are some not bad things in it, if you want to put it that way.
Shafted, though.
Well, I think that we should be in opposition. I think we need to be credible at all times. I think we need to set out our position. I think Kemi Badenoch's got one of the brightest minds in politics. I think that some of the media operation needs to be improved a great deal.
Do you? Why? What's wrong with it?
I think it needs to be faster in terms of its response, but I think it also needs to be well thought through. And I think that she's absolutely correct to be rebuilding the Conservative Party from first principles. I think we need to have those explained to us, because there's a whole generation that doesn't understand, you know, what the first principles of Margaret Thatcher were. And I think that, but I think it's the basics are there. And I think that she has shown good judgment as a leader. I think that what she has said when she's been giving some of the speeches on thoughtful issues have been quite impressive.
I mean, she's one of the brightest minds, perhaps, but not one of the brightest stars. I mean, any of the polling points to more people believing that Nigel Farage is a more credible prospect than Kemi Badenoch as Prime Minister, which, if you'd said that a few years ago, you wouldn't have necessarily believed it.
Well, a few years ago, how many people would have believed that Keir Starmer would win an election with a massive majority? Not exactly the most charismatic politician that we've ever had in Britain. So I think that what matters is that when we get to the next election, which party is the most credible alternative to what will be a failed Labour government and a failing British economy? That's when the test will be made.
But do you think that the Conservatives can kind of gain back their reputation for being low tax and low immigration? Just heard from Chris Philp. He won't give us the number of the cap he wants to put on legal migration, which I think is a problem for the audience. The audience wants the Tories to nail their colours to the mast. He's also criticised the Labour Party for being too high tax. People will rightly look at that interview and say, well, what happened under 14 years of the Tories? Sir Edward Lee has rightly said that the failure to control the borders was, quotes, a catastrophic error. He's not wrong, is he?
No, I think it was, and I think the failure was in legal migration. So much emphasis has been given to the boats, which is the smallest part of immigration into the United Kingdom, that illegal part of immigration. It's been the legal migration, the families being reunited to an extent that most people, I think, would think was unreasonable. And I think that being able to exempt immigration from the ECHR is a sensible thing to do.
Yeah, but
there are many of us
they should have done it while in power.
It's the sort of thing that we should have done.
Yeah.
But again, accepting that they made mistakes is not a bad thing, and being willing to rectify them, I think, is the right thing. I think it will take time for the Tory party to regain its credibility.
But aren't you seriously worried about being blown out of the water by reform come 2029? I mean, the local elections were not great.
I remember living through the period when, of course, the Social Democrats were going to replace both the Labour Party and the Conservative Party.
This is a different prospect, isn't it? Because Labour is also as unpopular as the Tories right now.
Well, remember at the time under Michael Foot, and when Mrs Thatcher was very unpopular, you had this great Social Democrats. They were going to win the election. When we got to 1983 election, Mrs Thatcher won with a huge majority. So these things change. I think what reform reflect are an unhappiness with the political system. I've just come back from Hungary a couple of days ago. Voters are angry right across the Western world. They're not entirely sure what they're angry about a lot of the time, nor indeed what the solutions are to that anger.
Well, Reform are channeling a lot of anger, I think, about immigration. They're also raising some serious concerns about sectarianism in British politics. I wrote about it for The Telegraph yesterday. Just before you came on air, you were talking about the situation in Pakistan and India. Got this fragile ceasefire. How worried are you that those tensions are going to spill over into the streets of Britain? Maybe they already have. And about sectarianism in general?
I think it is a problem. I think that in Britain we need to accept that you can't just celebrate diversity, you have to celebrate commonality. Because if you don't celebrate commonality, the fact that we're all British, and you simply talk about the diverse elements that people have, you don't end up with diversity, you end up with fragmentation and ghettoisation. And that's the real problem.
Do you think we're at that stage in the UK?
I think we've been there for some time. I think that we haven't been talking about what unites us, the things that make us British, and the things that we need to demand from British citizens in terms of how they approach the country. So I think a lot of that culture change needs to come. I very much agree with your piece that that is a problem that we haven't been tackling. I think that across our political system, there's been an unwillingness to deal with some of these cultural issues in politics, always trying to find a policy solution or a legislative solution when a lot of the problems we have are cultural.
Let's just have a final thought on the situation between Russia and Ukraine, because we've now got Vladimir Putin apparently opening the door to direct talks with President Zelensky. We have had what seems to have been quite a successful summit in Ukraine between Starmer, the Poles and indeed the French. What's your prediction for the outcome of this? Do you think that a deal can be done finally?
Well, I think you can get a strategic pause from Russia. Yeah. But in 2008, they invaded Georgia. We did very little. President Obama had a reset at that time, and Putin said, thank you very much, I'll also take Crimea, which he did. And then, of course, when we didn't react to that again, to any great extent, he went further into Ukraine itself. Putin is a serial liar, he's a murderer, he's a tyrant, he's an international criminal. He's the chief of what can only be described as a thugocracy in Russia. Do I believe that he can actually be pacified? Do I believe that his word is worth anything? No, I don't. He gave his word to Ukraine in the Budapest Memorandum when Ukraine gave up its nuclear weapons. And part of that agreement was that the borders of Ukraine would be respected and that Russia would be one of the countries guaranteeing peace to Ukraine. It was worth nothing. Putin will continue his behaviour. Once KGB, always KGB. It's not a pleasant thing to think, and we'd love to think that we can do business with him. Will his word be worth anything? I think at best a ceasefire is a strategic pause for Putin.
OK. We're running out of time, but very quickly, does the US president need to strong-arm him more? We've seen a degree of appeasement, I think, from Donald Trump when it comes to Russia.
We've seen a number of American presidents believe they could do business with Putin only for the reality of Putin's character and behaviour to show them that he cannot be accommodated.
OK. Liam Fox, we need to leave it there. Fascinating discussion. Thank you very much for coming in this morning. Lovely to see you. Well, still to come, I've got Reform UK's Richard Tice joining me. The party is still riding high in the polls, as we've just discussed. But what's their actual plan for government? And could they be peaking too early? This is the Camilla Tominey Show, only on GB News.
Hello there, very good morning to you. This is your GB News weather forecast provided by the Met Office. It is going to be another warm day during this second half of the weekend, though not quite as widely dry as we saw yesterday, all due to two features that are just pushing into the far northwest and the southwest. This one in the northwest is going to hold off for most, but there will be some outbreaks of rain and showers pushing into the Outer Hebrides and towards the Highlands later on. Meanwhile, in the southwest, we're going to see some showers pushing from the Channel Islands into parts of the West Country and eventually into southern areas of Wales as well. These showers could be on the heavy side with some thunder, maybe even some hail and lightning in there as well. So certainly some sharp downpours are possible. Generally though, across eastern areas, we're always going to remain that bit drier. There'll be a bit of a breeze out towards the coast, so it will feel that little bit fresh in there. But certainly as you head inland, plenty amounts of sunny spells in there will keep it nice and warm. It will turn quite cloudy for Northern Ireland later on, with perhaps some slightly longer spells of rain in there. But otherwise, highs of 24 to 26 degrees Celsius are possible where we do hold on to the sunshine. These showers in the south are going to continue to spread their way northwards as we head into this evening and overnight. Always again with the chance that they are thundery in places. Those longer spells of rain continuing across parts of Northern Ireland and fringing into western Scotland as well. And amongst all of that, it will be fairly mild, temperatures holding up around 8 to 10 degrees Celsius. But there could be some low cloud just pushing into the far northeast of England and eastern Scotland first thing on Monday. Will take a little bit of time to clear its way off. I wouldn't take the graphics too literally here because there is some uncertainty in regards to how extensive these showers will spread during Monday, but again there is potential for further downpours which may lead to some localised flooding in places, so it's worth staying up to date with the forecast as we head over the next day or so. But otherwise, where you do see the sunny spells on Monday, it is still going to be warm for the time of year, and the showers will tend to ease as we head throughout the rest of next week, so it's a return to more widespread sunshine for all of us. Bye-bye.
No matter the state it's in, this is our nation. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for a genuine, honest discussion on where we have been, where we are going, and where we are with the people who set the direction. That's State of the Nation every Monday and Tuesday at 8 o'clock, only on GB News, the People's Channel.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop star to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
This is Britain's newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
Welcome back. Joining me now in the studio is Richard Tice, Deputy Leader of Reform UK. Welcome.
Very good morning.
Let's talk about immigration. Are you going to support the Tories in their quest to disapply the Human Rights Act from immigration policy?
Well, if the amendment is selected, then I would think so. But, I mean, we would, frankly, we need to leave the ECHR, which, of course, the Tories won't do. And, frankly, we should scrap the Human Rights Act and start again,
Is that
which,
what you're
again,
definitely going to
the
do?
Tories wouldn't do. So it's a step in the right direction. But all these things, as you quite rightly challenged Chris Philp on, why didn't they do this when they were in the office? And that's why we're doing so well in polls. That's why no one trusts them anymore. They had the chance and they blew it.
Can I just confirm you'd definitely scrap the Human Rights Act if you were in power?
Yeah, we've got to get rid of the Human Rights Act,
ECHR.
start again, definitely leave the ECHR, which is a disaster.
There's a report in the Telegraph, I believe it is, saying that Reform is going to court to shut asylum hotels. How will that actually work in practice? Because people might rightly ask, well, where are you going to put asylum seekers?
So we've got a brilliant KC and a team of lawyers acting on a pro bono, no-cost basis. They've already started work, and we will be using every possible legal lever to try to resist bringing asylum seekers, whether it's into hotels or housing, in the councils we control. So, for example, in Lincolnshire, where we've just won control of the council, I've got an asylum seeker hotel in Skegness. And, yeah, we will be looking at every possible lever, whether it's...
them where?
Oh, very simple. The Greens and the Lib Dems are rather keen on them in their councils, so in the nicest possible way, you're welcome, folks.
Oh, you're going to emulate the policy of, I think it's a Texas governor, isn't it?
No,
Greg Abbott decided over in America, this is an American idea, that if you're very welcoming to migrants in Democrat areas, you're welcome to them. Are you seriously saying this?
Well, but that's the joy of democracy.
How are you going to make this work legally?
Our voters have said we don't want illegal immigration. We don't want mass uncontrolled immigration. And what they're saying to us, they've given us a mandate to do all we can in the councils that we control to stop this illegal immigration.
So which areas are you going to move these migrants to, sorry?
Well, at the end of the day, that's a matter for the government. I'm just making the point.
Is it workable, this, Richard Tice?
I'm making the point
that we will send them to Bristol?
We will put every... No, you're missing the point. The point is we resist the use of hotels and housing, and we will use a variety of levers and legal mechanisms to try to make it unlawful for them in our areas. And then it's up to the government to send them somewhere else.
Are you being serious in this idea that you would like to...
Deadly serious. Meetings are taking place this week.
No, about moving them to migrant-welcome areas.
Look, I'm just slightly teasing the Lib Dems and the Greens because they seem so keen on asylum seekers. And we can have a little bit of fun in politics amongst all the seriousness.
Indeed we can. What about tents versus hotels? Andrea Jenkins, your now colleague in Greater Lincolnshire.
Well, thank heavens we're asking the question, because actually, if smart, organised tents are suitable for British Army in places like Afghanistan, why aren't they good enough for people who've come here illegally? We should have that debate and that discussion. But Camilla, the smart thing to do...
Smart and civilised tents for refugees. It doesn't quite work, does it? I mean, the reason why tents are smart and civilised when the army is in them is because these are people
the army is structured and disciplined
with hospital corners,
well,
right?
Maybe actually...
What
maybe we should have
refugee
a bit
camp made of tents has ever looked smart and civilised in your experience?
Well, maybe a bit of discipline and a bit of structure and a bit of fitness, it's good for all of us. So
what are you saying? You're going to put asylum seekers through some kind of military camp?
My real point is that we've got to process people quickly and remove them. If they've come here illegally, they should all be removed. And the other thing, of course, we've got to do is stop them crossing the channel. This year, I suspect we're going to be 45 to 50,000 people.
Yeah.
By the time of the next election, we could be looking at 150,000. And the British people are raging furious about this.
So your offshore processing is going to be your deterrent?
If you leave the ECHR...
You're reinvigorating Rwanda.
Well, you leave the ECHR and you pick up and take back, which France is legally obliged to stop them leaving their shores, and they're in breach of their international duties.
Are you happy with the US trade deal? Because farmers are saying it sells them out, and we know you're on the side of farmers, right?
We are on the side of farmers, but look, it's work in progress. But actually, let's get this in context. For example, it's a partial trade deal. It's work in progress. It's not the full-fat option. And with regard to farming, for example, it doesn't cover things like chicken. It doesn't cover things like hormone-treated beef.
No, but it does cover beef. I mean, 13,000 tonnes of beef coming from the US. It's going to undercut the farmers of Aberdeen.
Camilla, look at the opportunities that, indeed, Aberdeen Angus beef is some of the best beef in the world, and Americans want to buy that great beef. So we've got great export opportunities.
So your
that we should be promoting.
Starmer's done a good job, has he?
Actually, look, credit where credit's due. Because of the Brexit opportunity, he's been able to have a trade negotiation. So he's praising himself thanks to Brexit. Funny for a man who wanted a second referendum.
Although, are you as worried as Liam Fox about the great Brexit sellout when it comes to this
Yes, I'm very worried
summit?
indeed about that. And I think we've secured an extra debate on that because it's really concerning. He wants to handcuff us to a failing economic model.
What conversations have you had with Jacob Rees-Mogg about defecting to reform?
None.
He's not ruling it out. What do you mean, none? You haven't spoken to him directly.
You just asked me a question. I've simply answered it.
Do you mean you personally or reform in general?
Me personally, and I suspect... No, look, Jacob...
hang on, finish that sentence.
Jacob's a lovely man, but he's a loyal Conservative.
Has anyone in the Reform Party been discussing defection with Jacob Rees-Mogg?
Not to my knowledge.
Nah, that's not a denial.
It is a denial.
Not to your knowledge doesn't mean no.
Well, I've no
Yes or no? Has anyone spoken to Jacob Rees-Mogg about defection?
I have not spoken, and not to my knowledge has anybody spoken. I can't speak. We've got hundreds of councillors. They might have bumped into Jacob and had a fun chat in the pub.
All right, so you're saying you haven't, but you can't rule out somebody else having had such conversations.
I think I can reasonably rule it out.
And can we talk as well about this extraordinary story in the Sunday Telegraph? To be fair, the paper's been taken away, but I think you're familiar with it. This police officer, he was investigated for a tweet, but then police officers took away what they regarded as Brexity materials. That included a copy of The Spectator and a book by Douglas Murray.
Well, obviously, The Spectator's understandable. I mean, it's clearly a very difficult, dangerous magazine. I mean, the whole thing is outrageous, this attack on free speech. And the irony, this was a former police officer in the same county of Kent, for heaven's sake.
I know.
But the fact that he was arrested, I think they needed 6 former colleagues in Kent Police Force. I mean, the whole thing is utterly
Will you put a stop to this?
Of course, put a stop to all of that
the Tories are committed to saying get rid of non-crime hate incidents, policing of...
But once again, these all came in under the Tory regime, and that's why they'll never be forgiven, they'll never be forgotten.
The other point that's been made is the comparative lack of policing. I've made it with regard to the Channel 4 documentary on grooming gangs. Have you seen it?
I've not actually seen that one.
There's a part in it where it reveals that there are TikTok groups operating which are kind of protesting the innocence of convicted child rapists and then referring to their victims as, excuse my French again, I've said this once already, but silly cows and bitches, talking about the victims. It does beg the question, why aren't the police investigating these groups?
Of course they should be. I mean, it's just outrageous. And I'm afraid the reason is because there is a cover-up going on in multiple areas, many towns, many local authorities and institutions, because people are guilty of an outrageous, scandalous cover-up.
So Reform are now in charge in Derbyshire, Staffordshire, Northamptonshire. Will you hold rape gang inquiries in those councils that you're now in control of? What can you commit to here?
Well, we've got to look at whatever we can legally get done in those areas. I haven't specifically got that answer today, but we are absolutely determined to try and hold these people to account. And it's extraordinary that Labour is still sort of sitting on the fence on this. Are they doing local inquiries? Are they not? Why won't they do a national inquiry?
But Rupert Lowe has funded a inquiry, hasn't he?
But of course, the issue is it hasn't got statutory powers, and that's why I think actually the Maggie Oliver initiative of actually running private prosecutions and looking at a judicial review may be faster and smarter to try and bring some people to justice and essentially to force through a different route action and accountability. We've just got to try all of these different things to see what works.
Quick question. You're not going to be campaigning for the abandonment of first past the post now, are you?
No, we've always believed in PR.
Manifesto. Have you? You've always believed in PR?
We've always believed in PR.
Well, even when you're ahead in the polls and you can win a majority without the Tories,
we've got the Welsh and Holyrood elections in Scotland next week. Next year.
Let me just get this confirmed.
Those under PR.
You are going to be campaigning for proportional representation now.
Look, we stick to our word. We like proportional representation. We think it's fair. There's pluses and minuses to every situation.
I think you quite like first past the post now, don't you? If you're up at 31, 32 in the polls.
You're teasing me on a Sunday morning. It's outrageous.
I know, it's great fun. Can we talk about something very serious to finish? You've been speaking a lot in the House of Commons about the need to prescribe the IRGC, the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps. What are your concerns there?
Well, I mean, we've got to prescribe the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps. They're essentially a harbour of terrorism, whether it's the Houthis, Hezbollah, and and Hamas, of course. And there's no excuse. It's pathetic that the Foreign Office continues to prevent this. And we've also got suspects. I want to know the immigration status of some of these suspects that have been arrested for alleged terrorism offences. What's their immigration status? How long have they been? The British people need to know answers. And if you don't give information, people worry about a cover-up.
All right. Richard Tice, we need to leave it there, but thank you very much for your time this morning. Coming up next, we're going to be speaking to Britain's strictest headmistress, Catherine Birbalsingh. She's going to join me to talk about the government's plans for education. I've got immigration on the brain because of all of the interviews we've done today. She's going to be talking about that education bill, why she's opposed to it, and why she's even going to go out and protest next week. Stay tuned.
I forecast a perfect holiday in the sun.
Weather looking good then?
For sure, and no worries about our travel insurance.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
The area of low pressure moving towards the UK at the moment is also going to be affecting parts of Europe as well. Widespread showers and thunderstorms over the next couple of days, particularly for France, but also into parts of northern Spain and Portugal. Some of the driest conditions actually down towards Gibraltar and southern areas of Iberia. Some showers also developing across parts of Italy, through the Adriatic and potentially over towards Greece as well. Turkey not faring too badly, but overall things will be settling down as we head over the forthcoming week with drier conditions prevailing.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. bulletins here on GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain. Weekdays from midday.
And the restaurant chain Toby Carvery has come under fire after chopping down a significant 400-year-old oak tree. It's considered to be more ecologically significant than the Sycamore Gap.
Yeah, so this tree is 6.1 metres wide. There it is, fallen down. It was one of London's oldest and largest, and it supports more native wildlife than any other tree, making it crucial for biodiversity, apparently.
All the woodlice must be so sad. Well, the chain believed that it had a legal right to fell this tree, which was not covered by a tree protection order.
Well, we're joined by Chief Executive of the Tree Council, Sarah Lom.
I mean, I was down on site this morning, and I have to say, first of all, you know, it makes you really, really sad to see this tree with its branches just chopped up lying there, but also really, really angry that it could have happened, that there isn't enough protection around to have stopped this happening. You know, we're incredibly lucky in the UK. We have more ancient trees than the whole of Europe combined. So it's really, really important that we look after them.
Now, of course, the restaurant argues that the tree was dead or dying, and of course that it was on their land, it was their property. So what do you say to their argument that they were within their rights to cut down this tree?
I mean, I'd like to know who assessed the tree to be dead. Normally, you know, you would have an arboricultural report and it would be in depth, in detail. We haven't seen that. Nobody seems to have seen that. So, you know, that could have shown that, in fact, perhaps the tree could have been managed better in some way. You know, it could have had some of the branches lifted, and then the tree would have survived rather than just felling it to the ground.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Headliners on GB News 11 p.m. every night. It's got 3 top comedians going through the next day's newspapers so you don't have to read them, which is great.
That's a good point. He's lying. I mean, maybe he's not lying.
That's Headliners every night from 11 p.m. and 5 a.m. as well on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Okoye, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. Right, everybody on their best behaviour. Get your pencil case out, straighten up, because joining me now is the nation's strictest head teacher, Catherine Burblesing. Lovely to see you, head of the Michaela Community School. Now, tell me, why are you going out in protest next week?
Yeah, well, and I'm hoping all of your viewers will join us. That's Sunday, 2 p.m, Whitehall. That's next Sunday, 18th of May. Why? Because there's so many of us who are unhappy with this government's way of dealing with children. So there are the people who want the government to have a conversation around smartphone access for children. There are the home educators who are very upset about the various freedoms that will be taken from them by the current Wellbeing in Schools bill. There are the school leaders who are very upset about what this bill will do to our ability to run our schools successfully. There are quite a number of people who are upset with what the government is doing to children. And I just think they've got it all upside down. Keir Starmer wants everyone to watch that program, Adolescence, there we go. He wants all the kids to watch that, and he doesn't seem to understand that the kids already know what's happening in adolescence. They're online. He finds it shocking because he doesn't realize, but they already know this stuff. The decision that needs to be made is, should we allow them access to that online world, unsupervised, whenever they want, in classrooms, in their bedrooms, where some of them end up quite literally dead. I mean, I don't want to exaggerate, but the fact is children's lives are put in danger by their unsupervised access to the internet.
Yes.
And then there's just the stuff that us school leaders are very well aware of, the necessity of uniform, the necessity of being able to have all routes of recruitment open to us for teachers. Recruitment is a massive problem, and the Education Secretary is about to shut down one of those possible routes. Behavior is a huge problem in our schools. What she's doing with uniform will increase behavior problems in our schools. The issues that are problematic for us, the things that she's got in that bill will make it worse for us. And of course, the public don't really understand bills. I get it. But the fact is, those of us who know, we know it. We're going out to march on Sunday. That's really just to say, look, we are upset. Please listen to us. She hasn't been to visit the top schools in the country that have amazing progress. She isn't talking to us successful school leaders and finding out why it is we are successful. I've actually written 829 letters and dropped them at the House of Lords just this week. I took a big box, it was very heavy, of all the letters and took them to the House of Lords to ask the Lords to put in the 5 amendments that we school leaders will want. But I know that the home educators, for instance, are asking for over 200 amendments to this bill because they know that their freedoms will be taken away to be able to home educate their children. The reforms that were made by the Conservative government over the time that they were in power have vastly improved education. Any sensible education secretary would continue in that vein, but I think that she thinks that she must undo what the Tories achieved simply because she's Labour. And that's crazy. Why not just continue in the same manner and keep improving our schools?
To be fair, she might not be able to continue in the same manner. What do you make of these rumours that she's about to be reshuffled out?
Well, that would be a very clever thing from Keir Starmer. I mean, she's clearly made a pig's ear of all of this. She hasn't listened to school leaders. She isn't interested in improving schools. A clever move from Keir Starmer would be to move her on and put somebody in who is willing to discuss and interact with us school leaders and listen to what works. I mean, ultimately, that's the job of an education secretary, to respect us school leaders and not think, as they themselves, the Department for Education, their official response to me was, she doesn't need any lectures, she's lived it. And this response of, well, we know what's better for children in schools than you do, because anybody who's been to school knows what's good for children, that's just wrong. Our profession is a profession just like any others, and we deserve respect. And we deserve the politicians at least listening to us, those of us who have been super successful, to see, well, how is it that you get disadvantaged children succeeding? How do you enable social mobility?
Very, very, very quickly, because we've got 30 seconds left. For parents and grandparents out there with children doing their GCSEs and A-levels, Miss Birball's saying, I want your top tip to support them. And I speak as a parent who does have a daughter doing A-levels at the moment.
Yes.
Top tip.
Yes. So the breaks are important. The work is important. Time the breaks, time the work, literally with a timer. Then be constantly telling them, well done, you keep going, tap them on the back. Sometimes they'll stare at their fingers, stare out the window, just tap them and say, come on, keep going, darling. And then they keep going, keep rewarding them. At the end,
great advice.
What is it that they like? Give them a reward.
Brilliant advice. Thank you very much, Catherine Birball-Singh. And as you say, that protest is next Sunday. So if anyone wants to join, do join them down at 2 p.m. in Whitehall. Now, coming up is Michael Portillo's show on Sunday, but with Angela Rippon resplendent in red. What have you got coming up on the show today, Angela?
Morning, Camilla. Well, yes, I'm sitting in for Michael, and oh my gosh, we've got a great panel for you. Any minute now, well, in fact, within the next 5 minutes, I think the Pope will be taking his first Mass in Vatican City. So we're going to look at the new Pope. Who is he? Is he going to be a political Pope as well as a religious Pope? And we're going to be looking at all sorts of wonderful guests who are going to be joining me. So I hope all of you will too.
And thank you very much for that, Angela. We haven't got much time left, so all that leaves me to say is have a wonderful rest of your Sunday. I'll be back next week, 9:30, but stay tuned for Angela.
Heavy showers first thing will be followed by a warm, cosy day. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there, this is your GB News weather forecast provided by the Met Office. Today and over the next few days, we've got the increasing chance of seeing something a little thundery mixed into the weather. Already to start off Sunday, we're watching this occluded front push its way up from parts of France that is now spread into the far south of England. Already seeing some thunderstorms across the Channel Islands, and they could start pushing into the likes of Devon and Dorset over the next few hours or so. As we head into the afternoon as well, there is the potential for further showers and thunderstorms to pick up across parts of the Midlands and into areas of Wales as well. Some heavy downpours are possible with lightning and maybe even a touch of hail in there as well. Nevertheless, they will be hit and miss, and there will be some sunny intervals in between these, and certainly over towards the east it's a nice dry day, temperatures peaking around 24 to 26 degrees Celsius. A bit more cloud developing for parts of Northern Ireland, some showers and rain developing in here as well, also some showers for parts of Scotland, but still nicely generally around 17 to 19 degrees Celsius. This rain up towards the northwest will tend to turn a little bit more persistent and also heavier as we head into this evening and overnight. So initially for Northern Ireland, but particularly then into the early hours of Monday morning for parts of western Scotland, some heavier pulses in there. We'll still see some showers out towards the southwest, but generally for England and Wales it is a mostly dry night with some clear spells. Mild for most of us, many holding up in double-digit figures, though a touch cooler up in the northeast. And here we'll see some low cloud around first thing in the morning, particularly around the coastal districts. That will slowly burn back as we head throughout the morning, but for the Northern Isles it could linger throughout Monday. That rain's still in there for parts of western Scotland, and then we'll see the showers developing in more widely across England and Wales throughout Monday afternoon. Again, thunderstorms are possible. Where you see them, there will be some torrential downpours in there. Still warm though, highs of 24 and 25 degrees Celsius. Showers tending to ease through Tuesday, and then it's fine, dry and sunny conditions returning for all from Wednesday. Bye-bye.
There will be a light breeze in the morning, leading to a warm front. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
You could be the next big winner on the road in this brand new Alnag Baron 560 motorhome, courtesy of Marquis Leisure. Imagine the fun you could have in this luxurious home from home worth over £67,000. We'll also give you £5,000 in tax-free cash to make your next getaway a great one. And it could be all yours. For another chance to win the lot, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text bonus to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB13 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 6th of June. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
So he can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently.
It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it?
It's explosive.
I mean, this is very good.
It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial.
And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born.
It's everything you need to kickstart your evening.
Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it.
That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
no,
isn't it? Because the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Dubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good morning and welcome to Sunday with Michael Portillo. No, it's not. It's me, Angela Rippon, standing in for Michael, who's having a well-deserved day off. And it really is a pleasure to join you on this sunny Sunday for 2 hours of arts, culture, current affairs and politics. The newly elected Pope Leo XIV is set to lead the Regina Caeli prayer from St Peter's Basilica in his